Welcome again to the Priority Lane podcast. I'm Lawrence Dauncey. This is the show where we discover how to work smarter, not harder. But not just that, we like to see how the human element crosses over into business life too. So I'll be asking my guests today a few human element questions, nothing too difficult to answer. My guest today is Rachel Meadows. She is Managing Director of IFGL Pensions, the pension arm of IFGL, a financial powerhouse, savings, investments, protection, etc. And Rachel is with me now. So, hi, Rachel. Very nice of you to join me. Thank you very much.
Hi, Lawrence. Thanks so much for the invite. It's a pleasure to join you.
Great, thank you. Listen, I'm going to start kick it off straight away. As I always ask the guests, as I did, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about previous roles, when they first started their career. And as I understand it, not only are you I suppose, a master pasty maker, but you're also, a mobile phone expert, and you can load lorries. Is that correct?
Yep, I'm a lady of many talents. Yep. Yeah, my very first job was at Sayers, which is a bakery chain in the northwest. So I was making and serving pasties. I think £2.35 an hour might have been my original salary.
That's that's a far cry from what it is now. I think
It's an insight into my age, I think.
I agree. Mine was sub £3 an hour, but I remember at the end of the week, I think getting £24, and I'm thinking I'd made it. So
Absolutely.
did you get paid in the little brown packets? Did you get those?
I did. I did. Yeah.
I love those things. It's just we wouldn't work anymore. So
But it's
yeah.
very visual though, isn't it? There's something quite nice about being handed your pay for the week, which is lovely.
Exactly. So that's again, you just touched on the human element. The one of the main, the five senses is touch, and you have that in your hand. Whereas now everything is electronic, and you just look at your phone and go, "Oh, okay, that's good." But yeah, that's great. So you started. Did you make pasties, or were
Well,
they homemade?
they came partly made. So we were
Oh,
warming them and serving them to people in the bakery and the cafe. And then so I did that on the summer I was 16 when I left school
okay.
for my A-levels. And then I got a better job, which I perceived as a better job at the time, as a mobile phone salesperson for the Link. I don't know if you remember the Link. It's an old chain used to be owned by Dixon's Currys.
That's right.
Did that for a few years actually. It was a great job. Yeah, you learn a lot in sales.
What model were you selling? Do you
Oh,
remember?
everything. Yeah, everything. I mean, do you know what? At the time, it was like the Nokia 3210. Remember that?
Oh yes.
Yeah, flip phones were all the rage. Text messaging was hot off the blocks. They are.
Just the
It's just very
cusp of technology.
Yeah, I think my kids now would laugh at the idea that I was ever talking to anyone about anything technology-wise, but
Oh really? I mean, the 3210 is a classic. I think lots of people still have them. I mean, they were so brickish and strong. You could use them as a doorstop. They're amazing.
oh, great.
So, but yeah, great. And the flip phones, that must have been Motorola, perhaps, was it?
Yeah, I think it was. Maybe a Samsung as well. So,
No, it's quite something. And then you moved on to loading lorries in a high vis jacket and big boot.
Steel toe cap boots, absolutely. That was my holiday job for a couple of my holidays and Christmases from uni. I would go to the Ulster Distribution Centre in Skelmersdale. I loaded lorries, so we were picking, lots of lifting. It was a great job, had a great laugh, lots of nice people. Didn't need to go to the gym because you were getting a full workout at work. And I think because of the location of the distribution centre, I feel like I did a pasty full circle because a lot of the staff there came from Wigan. So I was introduced to the delights of a pie balm. I don't know if you've heard of a pie balm.
It's amazing. Um, that says to look, that's three jobs from the age of 16, working through to A levels, and then university holidays. Now, anyone listening, they have to agree that you must, I mean, that just shows clear drive and determination to get out there and earn some of your own money. Where does that drive come from? You just comes naturally. How does that work?
Partly necessity. I always had to earn money, so I came from a working class background. I needed to partly for myself through university. We weren't allowed to work in term time at uni, so I had to make enough on the holidays to fund, what I needed to do the next term. Um, but I do think, yeah, I'm probably naturally quite hardworking and driven, and probably just one of those people that's always thinking, what next? I'm not great at switching off. And my husband gets very irritated if we ever have a rare, completely free day. About an hour in, I'll sort of be thinking, what we're doing now?
All right, so you kind of you find it difficult to switch off.
I do, yeah, yeah, I
Do
do.
you think that? Do you think that is? I do know a lot of people in work, obviously that you know struggle. I do too. Sometimes I can't switch the brain off. But do you think lots of women in a leadership role such as yours? Do you think that comes with the territory, or is it's just you?
I do think it comes with the territory, actually. And whilst it's everyone, but I do think it's especially women, because I think if you found yourself in a senior role, you're very busy at work, so it can be hard to switch off. But I think probably the biggest thing is that you finish your day job and then you go home and you switch on your next job, your mum and your wife and your, sister, friend, or so actually you just switch from one job to the next job to the next job and you're never actually off. So I think you're compartmentalizing and you're busy doing different jobs. It doesn't mean to say you can't switch off from your day job. Um, but actually being truly off and having downtime, I think that's, yeah, I think it's a struggle. And lots of women, particularly if you are doing that juggle, senior roles, kids, etc. You're normally quite an ambitious, competitive person as well, so you want to do a good job at everything you do. So I, I actually think it's mostly pressure that we put on ourselves, actually, because we're measuring ourselves against our own expectation constantly of how we'll deliver role, the kind of person you want to be at work, the kind of mum you want to be, kind of wife you want to be. Um, and that doesn't leave a lot of free time, really.
No. So I mean that. Do you find that sounds to me that it obviously, I'm a dad. I've got three children. They're two are older. One is a lot younger. And I find, and I think most parents do, particularly with the school holidays, which we're currently in at the moment, that it's a real juggling act to try and be present. Is what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
when you do go home, do you find it difficult to put that work head away and just try and be present and relaxed and calm? Do you struggle with that?
I don't think I do these days as much. I think when you're younger and you're more junior, I think that is harder, and it's almost an important skill to learn for self-preservation. So you don't go insane, just trying to do everything at once. But I do think what helps me is I had my children quite young. So not very young, but I was 25 when I had my youngest, 27 with my youngest. And so I was, I'd only really just graduated 3 years ago. I was doing my first professional job. I was also studying for professional qualifications, um, diploma in financial planning, have you. Um, so I think if you're just forced by necessity to have to switch into your role, you're just used to it. You've never really known anything else.
Oh, sure. No, I understand because that sort of I think that sort of pressure, perhaps particularly more for women being, when they're in motherhood and holding a leadership position, it seems that there is an imbalance between that and men in leadership positions and their children. They're always, I think, perhaps we don't do enough. I don't know on the family side, but it does seem to be, as you know, there is an imbalance in terms of the gender leadership. side of things, there are more men in leadership roles than women. That's just, that's a given.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it is a struggle, certainly, to manage that, home life with your professional life and be able to properly switch off. Like you said, it's not an easy thing. Um,
So,
so being the competitive leader you are, as you mentioned, you must have loads of energy. Where does the motivation come from? How do you motivate yourself to just keep going, I suppose?
Um, honestly, I'm not sure. I don't think there is one answer really. I'm ambitious. I want to provide a good life for me. I want to provide a better platform for my boys. I want to give them opportunities that maybe I didn't necessarily have. Help them do better. I think that's what parents do, isn't it? You want your kids to do better than you've done, and so that's a big driving force. But I think whilst financial services isn't a vocation, actually it is an industry where I think a lot of people in senior roles are genuinely motivated by wanting to do a good job and deliver good outcomes for our customers ultimately at the end of the day, because the kinds of products that we're offering, whether it's savings products, long term pension products like pensions, which we specialize in, or insurance products, we play a massively important role in helping people live their lives in the way they want to and need to. So that is very motivating when you know you've done a good job, when your team's done a great job, and ultimately you've made someone's life easier, sometimes at a difficult time.
Yeah. Do you find um, you all my guests on the certainly in the Women in Business series, which this is part three of, um, the two guests they all really drilled down on that point of they want to do a good job, and it's actually it's very rewarding, to get um, to see clients uh, do well, and to help them out. And I find that you've also just corroborated that, same as Jen and Claire, the last two guests. So I'm kind of wondering, is in financial services, how is that? You don't. That's not really a draw. What I'm saying is, it's never advertised that if you're in financial services, you're going to be able to help people. I mean, yes, we know that, but it doesn't seem to be advertised that way. In other words, how are you going to get more people into it in that term? How can you attract more people?
Yeah, I think it's a really great point. I think as a whole industry, we've got an awful lot of work to do around better explaining to people the kinds of roles that are available in financial services, because there's a huge array of roles, and the impact you can have through those roles, like as you say, in improving customers' lives, but also actually in career progression and things like flexible working. Financial services is actually a great industry for flexibility and for everyone, but women as in particular, to be able to build great careers and not necessarily miss out on some of the things that you also want to do as a parent or the other life roles that you might hold. I've been very fortunate to work for some great businesses with great flexibility. When my boys were small, I was able to go down to 4 days a week, do a day at home. When working from home was really not a thing for financial advisors at the time. Uh,
Yeah,
so I think as an industry, we can offer such great things. And actually, we should be out there shouting about it, because when you think about school career lessons, my eldest is 16 next week. And, I don't think we do as good a job as some other industries at promoting some of the fabulous benefits that the industry can offer.
yeah. It's. I mean, I don't remember ever, being when I was at school. I don't and college. I don't remember there ever being a sort of um, career day where they're going, "Oh, you think about financial services."
Yeah.
So do you think?
Let
Do you
alone
think?
pensions, gosh, we thought about pensions, you just,
Right, right. So do you think that it would help if that was put into a? I'm not saying specifically into a school curriculum, but do you think it needs to start, at the educational sort of stage, sort of age group?
Yeah, I think it does. And I know there are some industry bodies. So the CII is a good example of professional body that goes out and does some, university events or open days, talks about it. But, I think we can all do more. There's lots of great firms who can play a role locally in their local communities first at building a bit of awareness. Um, but yeah, I think it's so important for the industry as well to do that work because we do need talented people. There's lots of talk about AI replacing jobs, and of course some of that will happen, and it's great to be able to automate some things and deliver efficiency and maybe reduce the boring jobs that at times people need to do. Um, but as an industry, we've always struggled from a lack of genuinely talented, quality
Yeah.
people. So that this is crucial for our pipeline of talent as well.
Right. Are you saying that the talent pool, for your like the feeder talent pool for financial industry is low?
Well, it's not as high as it needs to be. Um,
Okay.
I think we all struggle for enough good quality recruits. It's not that there aren't any, there are, but we need more at all stages. And I think, again, it's not just about school leavers. Sometimes work returners, people looking for an industry change, career change midlife, might not think about financial services or pensions, but there's great roles available, great careers you can build.
I mean, you mentioned that there are institutions that do might do a university day or events, that sort of thing. Have you guys, IFGL, or I know your IFGL Pensions is you're one of 7 brands of IFGL. Um, have you guys done any sort of industry awareness days or anything like that?
It's a good question. So, our head office, our group head office, IFGL, based in the Isle of Man, and
Right.
IFGL are a very prominent brand within the Isle of Man community, and they do a lot of school support work, work experience placements, recruiting school leavers. So, as a group, we do quite a lot of work there. Um, Personally, I've been involved in some work that the CII have done in the past around building the profile of the industry, facilitating work experience placements. That's something we'd like to do more of in the future. It is a people industry. Yeah.
Because I mean, but you yourself, you're based in Liverpool,
Yes.
a great university there too. So I really wanted to know whether or would you consider perhaps, I suppose, doing I suppose, like a brand awareness or an experiential sort of, day or something like that to, with the university. Would you consider doing something like that?
Potentially. I mean, the pensions business, IFGL Pensions, is still relatively small. So we've only got around 50 staff. So we've not had maybe enough graduate intake roles at one time to be able to go out and do sort of a structured day with the university. We can, of course, go and do sessions to build awareness of the profession in general.
Yeah.
But we are a very ambitious business. We are strongly focused on growth. We've grown quite a bit by customer numbers over the last 18 months. And that's the trajectory we want to continue. So hopefully that's an area where we'll be able to be more active in the future.
Yeah, I was just curious because it's not necessarily just in terms of a potential recruitment magnet for you guys, but also as an awareness to the youngsters about pensions, even though it sounds something like really granddad, doesn't it? It's like
Yeah.
oh, that's what my
Yeah.
granddad. I don't need to know about that, but they kind of do because even now. I mean, I regret not starting with I mean, I've been working since I was 16. Um, and I never, no one ever told me anything about that. And now I'm looking at going, good Lord, I'm not where I really should be. So, so that's kind of where I was going. I just, whether it was it was possibility to bring awareness to, start a pension ASAP, basically. So,
No, absolutely. Yeah.
did you start a pension early or?
I did. I mean, again, the industry that I'm in, you'd hope that I would have done, albeit when I when I joined the firm that I was with at the time, the earliest you could join the pension scheme was on your 24th birthday. So I was actually a qualified financial planner advising on pensions before I was actually up to join our own pension scheme. Things these days are a little bit different. So we've obviously got auto enrollment in place now for workplace pension schemes. So people do tend to join when they start work. But I think where we need to do a bit more work, where the industry is actually really putting a lot of effort in, is building awareness early in people's careers about how much you need to save to be able to retire comfortably and to be able to have any choice around your retirement age, and the massive power of tiny changes very early on. If you make, little changes in your 20s, each time you get a pay rise, maybe just put 0.5% more in your pension, you never feel the pain. So it never feels like you've contributed more or you're having to put big sums of money away. But actually, the compounding impact of that over time, it's like a superpower. So you kind of go into an autopilot if you're disciplined early on, and you never have to get to that awful stage, which too many people still do, where you hit your sort of mid 40s, early 50s, and you think, oh, a pension. It starts feeling real. But if you're trying to bridge the gap at that age, actually it is quite expensive to try to play catch up. It's possible, but it's a lot harder than staying on track when you're younger.
So I do know, obviously, that the workplace pension, the Nest, it's Nest, isn't it? I think it's called.
Yeah, so
Uh,
next is the government
yeah, the government,
option.
which obviously your employer pays into. Um, what advice would you, for example, if I'm employed by a company, which I have been, and I have a very small amount in a Nest pension, what would you advise me or someone who has that? Would you go stick with that, or would you choose a different product?
So Nest is a great default option for
Yeah,
maybe small firms that don't have the budget to go out and work with advisors to pick a more comprehensive workplace schemes. There's some great workplace schemes out there. If you're self-employed, I don't know whether you're still working with an employer now or if you're self-employed, there might be something that's a bit more flexible in Nest. So you might be able to open a SIP, save in each month, still benefit from your tax relief,
yeah,
maybe have a little bit more choice and control around your investments and how you decide to draw your pension out. I, I think though too much of the conversation can sometimes be around where you're saving. And lots of pension providers offer great quality products. Obviously, I would think ours are, but there's some great firms. The most important thing, though, is actually the basics. It's less about the pot and more about how much is going in the pot. So as long as you're
okay,
saving regularly into a pension, that's actually the lion's share of the hard work.
okay,
Where it
okay,
is then, it's the icing on the cake. It's not the cake.
right. Because my other half, she's a BSL interpreter and translator and deafblind communicator as well. And she does very, very well. She's obviously self-employed, like most of the interpreters are. And we were talking just yesterday about pensions, and she doesn't have one. And because I work in financial services, I said, "Well, I'm not a pension advisor.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you." I said, "But funny enough, I speak to Rachel tomorrow, and she does know." But Tony, my other half, she said that what scares her, and was kind of the word she used,
Yeah.
is that she doesn't has no idea which one to choose, which company or provider to choose, and what level is it, low, medium, high, which she has no idea, which I totally understand because I don't either. So, what would you advise someone in that position to? How do they choose?
It's a great question, and it's so common, as well as not even knowing what questions you should be asking in the first place. That's
Right.
such a common problem. The first step actually is if you're not sure where to start, speak to a financial advisor because they will give you that help, support, they'll help you navigate all the options, cut through the noise, help you pick the product, But again, linking back to what we were just mentioning before, most importantly, what they could do is sit down with her and say, okay, how much can you afford to save in? It's £200 a month. Okay,
Yeah.
if you save £200 a month in from this point up until this age, this is what that might look like at retirement. How does it look? If you could afford to save another £50 a month, what difference would that make? So they'll actually handhold you and help you understand not just what's going in, what that actually means at the other end, because that's the challenge with something like a pension. It's so long term, it feels very abstract in your head.
Yes, it's true.
Having that expert sat there to, just break it down, talk about it with you, talk about your investment options in a way that's, again, accessible. You don't need to make lots of sophisticated investment decisions yourself. There are professionals out there who are, they're doing this all the time. That's their day job. So leverage help. It doesn't mean to say you need to work with that financial advisor, you know, every year from now until retirement. You might do, if you've got a need for advice each year. But lots of advisors now will work with you, and then maybe just touch base every couple of years. So they'll work with you in a way that you need for your
You're right.
circumstances.
Because she did say to me that she said, but surely, when I said to her, you should perhaps, speak to an advisor. And, I do know a few. So, but she said, isn't that uh, basically, I don't earn the sort of threshold or the revenue that, they kind of, a lot of advisors have a minimum, let's say £500,000 of investment before they even pick the phone up to you or speak to you. And and that I feel is also um, perhaps one of the reasons why only not even 9% of the UK population took financial advice last year,
Yeah.
because I think we, as the general populace who aren't high net worth or high net worth individuals, um, we worry that we're not earning enough for them to even be interested. So where does that leave Tony, for example? How, when she's doing okay, but she's not, doing huge six-figure numbers a year.
Yeah.
Um, where does that fit into someone in that bracket?
That's a great question. So you're right that some advisors have, a particular target market and they'll work with people in a particular wealth bracket. There are lots of financial advice firms out there that will work with, normal people. And because they're fee based, they're not as expensive as you would think. Actually, the benefit that you gain from that hand-holding and support more than pays for the costs of advice. So I think people should not be discouraged uh, from seeking advice. Lots of advisors will have an initial conversation on a no obligation, no cost basis to start with as well, so that you can kind of see if you've got a person fit, a bit of a rapport with the person. With your advisor, you're not only talking about technical financial things, you're actually having very personal conversations with them. You'll talk to a financial advisor about your goals, your dreams, your health circumstances, your finances, the state of your
Yeah,
relationships, things that you would never normally talk about with someone that you've just met. So the person fit's important. If if you genuinely can't afford advice, then online there are some great guidance options. So it's not quite as good as sitting down with someone and getting a personalized recommendation. But there are some, hints out there in terms of where to start. And some of the big name pension providers have got great resources on their websites. I mean, IFGL Pensions, we have some information on our websites, but our products are uh, we offer SIPs for UK customers who want to invest in commercial property. So typically people that are a bit more sophisticated in pension investment, and international and
yeah,
offshore customers. So we're a little bit different. But there is information out there. If she just Googles, pension, where to start.
yeah. I, it's a running joke with us. She kept asking me some questions that I imagine, bless her, she thought only I would know the answer to.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just responded, Google it. So, so that
I
was,
know it sounds awful, doesn't it, when you say Google it, but there's a lot out there. But I think the other piece of signposting would be I don't know if you've heard of Pension Awareness Week.
I
Take
haven't.
take it's an exciting week, but it takes place every year in September. It's primarily sponsored by a business called Pension Geeks, but lots of pension providers take part in it as well. And during the course of Pension Awareness Week, there's all sorts of free to watch bite-sized webinars, live shows, loads of videos on the website, guides. Brilliant place to start. So the Pension Awareness Week website, it is a great place to start in itself. There's loads of resources. You can watch last year's shows with
Yeah.
experts, and that takes place every year.
No, that's great. That's a great resource. Thank you for that. So she'll be a lot happier. I'll get some brownie points for saying something more tangible than just Google it. Because as I said, I'm a bit naughty. You see, I am actually quite naughty, and I do it on purpose to wind her up. So I'll try hard. Yeah, listen. Next, I wanted to talk to you about teams. Something you mentioned a few minutes ago, and I think it was to do with kind of support, with your work and home life. So I think now what I've seen certainly is that the teams that the leaders that I speak to have built or surrounded themselves with, it they feed off each other, which means it allows each other to be more flexible, have that flexibility to manage that that work life balance. Um, have you done the same when you built the team? Was it already an incumbent team, or did you kind of bring the team together in this last 18 months or so?
Yeah, great question. So IFGL Pensions was only acquired by IFGL about 3 years ago. And I joined the business at that point. So I was new to the pensions business, also new to the IFGL group. And at the time, the pensions business was in need of some transformation. We needed to improve service levels. We needed to overhaul culture. We needed to replace some back office systems and processes. So over the last 3 years, there's been lots of change. Hopefully for the better. Definitely think for the better. But one of the most important elements of change was making sure that we had the right team in place. So
Yeah,
in some cases, that meant bringing in the right people with the right skills and the right cultural fit. Can do people who are really
yeah,
focused on customer service and
yeah,
job and grow. But that also involved a lot of investment in training and development for some of the staff as well, and putting in place clearer team structures and making sure that not only can our leadership team work well together, but also that our whole operation can work well as a team, and within each of the individual department teams, people have got the tools they need, the colleague support they need to be able to operate in their lives and build better careers. And it's kind of win-win for us, because if your staff are happy and they're more likely to do a good job for your customers,
yeah.
through that you kind of do both hand in hand.
No, it increases the productivity clearly, and But yeah, in terms of that support, so I found an interesting stat. Excuse me, I need to put my glasses on as I am now somewhat aged. So the research that I found, it says, and this is sort of kind of around what we're talking about in terms of having a support network around you to help mitigate, mental health challenges, or the busy life work schedules that we all have. And it says women in business leadership face distinct mental health challenges. The studies indicate that they experience higher rates of stress and burnout compared to their male counterparts. So it says that 43% of female executives experience burnout compared to 31% of male leaders. Now, 43%, that's a significant number. Do you, can you identify with that? Or, I mean, you seem very cool, very calm, very collected.
Okay, I enjoy what I do. I mean, I'm fortunate. I work for a great group, and IFGL is a great group to work for culturally. I think I've been very fortunate through my career actually that in my professional life I've only ever worked for great businesses. Griffiths and Armour early on, Charles Stanley, Broadstone, so I think that helps if you're working within great quality businesses that are trying to do a good job. There's a lot to be said for a Friday night glass of wine as well, to be honest. And a nice walk, or, just, yeah, I think your family life as well outside of work can help you keep perspective. And, maybe I sound a bit flippant with my Friday night wine and my, kids putting perspective on it all, because I get that, people can do those things and still struggle. But I'm perhaps fortunate that my combination of, today I work for a great firm. It's nice to switch off at the weekend
Yeah,
and family puts everything in perspective and keeps you connected to reality and
yeah,
real life outcomes.
yeah. I think that's. I say you're just identifying what I would see as a sort of global support network,
Yeah,
across work, and 43% experience that. I mean,
it's really high.
it's a really
Scary.
and, and the actual and the other stat here is that 86% of female small business owners they report experiencing poor mental health. I mean, that's that's massive, and I imagine that's because if they're an individual enterprise, they've got all the weight of everything, and that perhaps they're not in a position to hire a team that can take some of that pressure off. But I just found that's that interesting, but it
Yeah.
does all kind of relate back to
No, it's difficult.
like
I guess trying to be all things to all people
right,
can
yeah,
so yeah, your support network's so important, whatever that looks like.
yeah, no, that's great. Well, look, I'm now going to move on to some, I suppose, the human element side of things, which is something that I always do. And the Priority Lane podcast is we're a big advocate for that. You might not have seen there was I interviewed our CEO who owns the Priority Lane, and I interviewed him last week. Uh, and I basically we had a little bit of banter. I've known him for a long time, yeah, we always touch on a little bit of humour and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to finish with a few sort of questions. Don't get that. And the first one is, what sound or noise do you love?
Oh God, wasn't expecting that question. Uh, the sea. I like the sound of waves. Find that very relaxing.
Okay. What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, those brown tape guns on it squeaks. Oh, drives me insane. I can't cope with that noise.
So basically, that means, listeners, that Rachel will never move again or tape up a box by the sound of it.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the association with the traumatic process of moving house.
Yeah, it is. It's the worst thing in the world, isn't
Oh,
it?
work.
I love that. I love that. Um, these next few are very difficult, and they are very difficult.
Okay.
Favorite film?
Ooh, Independence Day. It's not very highbrow, but I just really like it.
I would not have taken you for a a sci-fi you know
Yeah, love an alien film.
thing. Okay, cool. Uh, favorite song or music genre? Because favorite song is too difficult. But yeah, favorite song or music genre.
That's really tricky actually, because I have quite eclectic taste in music. I like
This is what we want to hear.
bit of everything. I love, dance music. I love R&B. I love a bit of meatloaf. I actually love 80s. I love loads of different music.
Love Meadow. That's amazing. What a response. Uh, favorite book or author or genre?
Mm. I like um I like just some, just a thriller. Gosh, have I got a favourite author? I don't think I've got a favourite author. I read a lot actually. Lisa Jewell's very good. Again, I have quite eclectic tastes. Yeah, I read a lot. I also read sort of business books. If you're talking about women in business, Mary Ann Seekert, The Authority Gap. I'd highly recommend everyone read that book. That really is an eye-opening one.
Okay. And what would you want to do now if you weren't doing what you're currently doing? What job would you want to be doing now that you know, but you're not currently, you're obviously not this. If you had the opportunity, what would you do?
It's a good question. I'd actually genuinely enjoy my job. If I wasn't doing this, I think I'd love being like a party planner or something like that, because I love throwing a big family party. We're kind of known as, there's a bit of hosting. We'll always throw a bit here, something like that. So I love throwing a party. That would be really. Yeah.
Like a week. So I've been in events and hospitality for a long, long time also. So and wedding planners, I've done a gazillion, and they're actually not very profitable, because when you calculate the work hours, all the emails, phone calls, show rounds, planification meetings, etc., versus what you actually get paid, it's not a great profit margin. So
No, I
that's
can imagine. I think it would be, but I'm fortunate, I guess, because I enjoy what I do, and I like the industry we work.
That's fair enough. And finally, back to a more serious note, what piece of advice would you give, not just other women, but anyone in looking to make that move, or to get over perhaps the imposter syndrome, which I know that Claire and Jenny, who I spoke to a few weeks ago, they both mentioned that some women struggle with that. What piece of advice would you give to women or anyone looking to make that step it up into perhaps financial services or whatever business?
I would say, even if you feel that imposter syndrome, just make yourself have a go, because that is when you will learn those skills that you think you don't have yet to be able to do the next job up. The way you get those normally is, a little bit in the deep end. If you're not slightly out your comfort zone, you're not learning. And you work in life such a long time, making sure you are learning yourself is important, keeps you interested as well and motivated.
I understand. I think my other two guests, they also concur with that. It's just have a go. You've got nothing to lose effectively. So but that's great. Well, listen, Rachel, thank you so much again for joining me. Bit of revelation, some very interesting answers there at the end. I'm sure we will put together some shorts on obviously the social media platforms. The meatloaf one in particular, I think we'll get some views. But I thank you so much again for joining me. And listen, have a great week. I'm Lawrence Dauncey. This is the Priority Lane, and we will see you again soon.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, Lawrence.
Pleasure.
This episode is sponsored by My Brokers app, a white label app built specifically for financial advisors and wealth management professionals. If you want to know how you can have your own app exclusively for your business and your clients up and running by this time next week, visit mybrokers.app or download the free My Brokers demo app from your favorite app store.